Cool. I think it's already 4 minutes past. I think we can probably kick off. We're gonna be recording and we're gonna be sharing the recording after we finish the session. So if someone's a bit late, we'll yeah, should be able to see everything. So all right, let me close this. So well, officially welcome everyone. I'm really, really, really excited about this webinar. Um, we we didn't know what was the right name for the webinar, so we just figured that everyone wants to know how to show up in AI search nowadays. And I'm really excited because I have Niklas here with me. Niklas is the co-founder of a growth agency, and he is going to be sharing a lot of practical example, real experiments. I'm going to be sharing a couple of case studies as well. And we're going to share 5 levers that you don't need anyone else than yourself to go and execute today. So yeah, super excited. Let's kick it off. So the agenda is really, really simple. We're going to spend a few minutes on foundations. So how do you build a meaningful prompt setup from the get-go? You know that setting up the prompts is the foundation, because that's you have to decide for which prompts you want to show up, and then you build on top of that. So that first setup is super, super critical. And then we're going to talk a little bit about how you track those prompts, and then you find citations and things like this, right? And then the second part is going to be these 5 levers I told you before. So 5 things. Niklas is going to go into each one of them in detail, but they're gonna revolve around the idea of AI search, on-site content, content that you create on your help center, YouTube, review sites, and then how do you guys create programmatic content at scale. So these 5 levers, as I said earlier, I think they work for most companies. They are specially designed for tech companies. Something really important is that they are actionable today. So you don't, there are many things, there are many other levers that you can pull, like you can pull like the PR level, you can pull earned media, you can pull the lever of reaching out to other bloggers and things like this. But everything we're going to share today are things that you can go and execute on yourself, right? So no excuses. You can take these 5 things and go and do them right after the webinar. We're going to be sharing real experiments, real client data, actionable frameworks. When Niklas and I were designing this webinar, we both were discussing that there are so many people talking about AI stuff, and there are many people saying stupid things. So we wanted to provide you guys with things that are very real, where we can back things with data. And yeah, our promise to you guys is that we'll try to keep it as practical as possible for everyone. So I really, really hope that you guys enjoy it. I'll pass the mic to Niklas so that he can introduce himself.
Yeah, thanks so much, Daniel. I'm happy to be here today. So I'm Niklas. I'm founder and CEO of Radyant. I'm working in search since 2013. So I graduated high school in May 2013, and I registered my first freelance business, which was basically a consultancy for designing websites and helping people with SEO and Google Ads in August 2013. I still have this piece of paper that is the starting point to what the agency is today. We are now around 20 people. We're like a boutique organic growth agency in Berlin. We primarily work with clients in Germany and the EU. And I'm hosting the Masters of Search podcast, which is a podcast where I interview people from all different companies, like from Vice, from Miro, from Personio. I had Lily Ray. The episode will come out, I think, next week. So really diving deep into everything SEO and AI search. And our goal is to build the number one organic growth agency. And with number one, we do not talk about size, like in headcount or revenue, but we talk about impact. So for us, everything is about impact. Like how can we ensure that our clients actually get sustainable growth from working with us? And we're using our SEO and AI search knowledge with proprietary AI infrastructure. So we have actually built our own infrastructure where we do not rely on like a ChatGPT, like prompt database and all of that, but where we actually create content with pretty sophisticated workflows, where we build our own tools. Like we do experiments, for example, around YouTube, and then we create internal tooling for that so that we can ensure we drive results for our clients as fast as possible. And the ultimate goal is to dominate Google, ChatGPT, and other platforms to drive more revenue, to drive more growth.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you so much, Niklas. I've been, greatly surprised, after, the conversations we've had, like with the, depth of knowledge and, like experimentation approach that you bring into the ecosystem is super, super appreciated.
Thank you so
So,
much.
yeah, so thank you for joining me on this webinar. Yeah, a few words about me. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Omnia. Use omnia.com. We are building an AI visibility platform, and we're building this platform with the foundational idea that most of the work that happens on the platform should happen with AI agents, right? So you shouldn't be, for example, doing a lot of analysis yourself manually. You should have AI agents that do the work for you. You shouldn't be like prompting ChatGPT manually to see if you show up in the replies. An AI agent should be doing that for you. So I've spent most of my career like building like tech products. I have done that, I'm advising a bunch of like European scale-ups on how to turn like AI monitoring into real business. Before that, I used to work at Klarna for about 7 years. I've led some like really high, really large number of product teams and go-to markets. I launched a few countries from scratch. So I have a few like scars from trying to grow businesses, especially on the tech side of things. And I am really obsessed now with the idea of creating 10x marketeers, right? I think something very, very similar to what happened like last year with developers, where developers using Cursor or Cloud Code are becoming 10x developers. I am seeing that, in the tech teams that I lead. I think we are starting to see a very, very similar shift with marketeers. And my obsession with Omnia is how can I build a tool that will make marketeers 10x as effective when working on AI visibility. So cool. Intros done. Now you know who Niklas and Daniel are. Let's go into the foundations, Niklas.
Yeah, let's do it. So you already said it in the introduction. It's super important to build a meaningful prompt set. And I think that's also something where a lot of people fail actually, because you shouldn't go with like a prompt set that was just created by ChatGPT based on a prompt like, hey, I want to track my AI visibility. Can you please suggest 10 prompts? Because this will mostly not really be grounded in something that is usable. And it's always, you have to think about the prompt set so deeply because it has knock-on effects. So if you have a prompt set that provides you with data that is not really usable because the prompt set is not really meaningful, then in the end, you will have actions that you take from it that might not drive results. So it's something as if you think about a calculation that you did maybe in a math course in school, like if the initial calculation is wrong, how can the following calculations be right? It's like a lock-on effect of the error. And I think there is like the most important thing about meaningful prompt set is first party research. So you should really deeply think about what are people in your ICP actually searching for, and there are multiple ways to look at that. Obviously, you can go about very sophisticated ways, but the easiest ways is looking at sales call transcripts. So if you have in any shape or form a business where there are sales calls happening, and even if you do not call them sales calls, but like demo or discovery or whatever, it's just the language that people are actually using. And obviously you have to train your sales team to ask the right questions if they're not doing it already. So I would advise to actually break up the silo and talk to the sales team, like align deeply between marketing and sales, and ask them to ask your prospects where they find you, what actually they've been researching, what are things that they care about, etc. A good sales team will do this anyway, but just wanted to point this out. And also something else is support tickets. So if people actually say, like in a chat, hey, this is something that I have to solve, and this is a problem I'm currently facing, this can provide a lot of insights on what people are actually really caring about. And then also something that's a little bit more technical, you can actually use the Google Search Console. So you can use this like a little bit tricky regex here, but I think we will share the slides and then you can just copy this formula, or maybe you can take a screenshot and then put it into ChatGPT and say, ChatGPT, hey, can you give me this formula from the slide here that you can put into your Google Search Console? And this formula is basically an expression that shows you 5+ word queries in the Google Search Console. And why 5+ words? So you can adjust the number obviously to 3 to 4 to 7, because questions that people ask tend to contain a certain amount of words. So 5 could be a good threshold for actual meaningful questions. This obviously has the premise that you have some data in your Google Search Console. For very small websites, it might not work so well. But I think the key part is here to not start immediately with like a keyword research tool or something like that, but actually start with your audience, because you want to have something that is rooted in audience research and rooted in actual problems that your ICP cares about. And then you should layer in volume data. And this could mean that you look at your Google Ads top converters, for example. So if you're running Bing ads, obviously also Bing. And I would advise here to not look at the keywords that you have booked in, but at the search terms. And search terms can be completely different to keywords if you're using stuff like phrase match or broad match. Not going into too much detail here, just if you have one takeaway at this point, if you go to Google Ads, look at the search terms, not at the keywords, and check for what's converting. Why? If you have terms there or topics that you track then and where you can improve your visibility and have your brand show up more, you have at least a sense that this will probably drive some impact in terms of leads, in terms of signups, in terms of revenue, because it's already converting in Google Ads. Then obviously search volume. So using the obvious methods of checking search volume, I would actually also advise to maybe use Google Ads and check the Google Ads keyword planner here and look for search volume and just get a sense of how much demand is there for certain topics. This should not be the main driving force for your decision which prompts to track, but it should be a signal that you layer in. You can obviously also look at Google Trends, etc., to get an idea about like which topics are bigger or smaller. But like in the end, I would always care more about quality than quantity. So if you have a topic where you feel like if this is something where 10 people in a given month see us as the number one solution, then I have a high confidence that they will convert and this will drive the business forward. I would always prioritize this against a really fragmented, broad visibility. You can obviously also have other conversion data from LinkedIn or from like other platforms where you know which topics or like which messages, etc., move the needle for you. And there's something that I really like, which is really cool, which is Reddit Answers. So I definitely advise you to go to Reddit Answers and ask some questions there. We could probably do a whole webinar just about Reddit Answers because it's a really cool tool. But yeah, it's just so it's a layer on top of a lot of Reddit threads and comments, etc., where you can ask questions like, what do people care about when they look for an AI visibility monitoring solution? And you will get actual user conversations on the platform. And the same goes also for other communities. Like it can be Quora, it can be on X, like whatever. I think this is just something, the key takeaway here is you want to have actual user conversations and you do not want to have like some sort of thin synthetic data to ground your prompts in. Yeah. And I think the most important part when we talk about prompt tracking is to understand that so people are often looking at it from the visibility angle. Like, I want to track my visibility. And I think this is totally fine. Like, this is something that obviously is important. You want to have some sort of number to benchmark yourself against your competitors. But I think it's the most important aspect is really the citations and understanding which web sources shape the AI response. And you want to know if you are cited, for example, like with your own domain, and maybe also other domains where you are mentioned and you are listed, or if your competitors are cited. And then you really want to understand what are the sources that are used here, like from a category standpoint. Like, is it your or your competitor website? So mostly like a corporate page. Is it a help center? Is it YouTube? Is it review sites? Or is it third-party content? And this tells you exactly which lever to pull, because if it's mostly like your competitor content, or if it's mostly like something from YouTube, or like not mostly, but if it's a very important citation source, you know that you have to look deeper into that bucket to really ensure that you pull the right levers. And I think also if you look at how you can set up your prompt tracking, I would generally recommend to definitely track prompts across ChatGPT, Perplexity, and AI overviews. That being said, if you have an audience that is, for example, very, very like enterprise heavy, it might make sense to think about Copilot, because the employees and enterprise companies sometimes only have access to Copilot based on like compliance restrictions, etc. Generally, it makes sense to also track AI mode, but as we know from the data that is there, which is fragmented, and like we don't really know how reliable it is, but AI mode still has not the biggest adoption. It's growing strongly, but it's not something that has a lot of volume. So this can be a nice addition, but you don't necessarily need it. And then there's obviously Claude, which has grown a lot lately, but it's also like very hard to track, and it's also expensive also for the platforms to track. So this is just something to keep in mind. So if you care about Claude, for example, it might also make sense to run your own tests like a couple of times just to get an idea. So this will not be perfect data, but it's something that you just want to keep on the radar. So the platforms you track has to be rooted in the target group you address. Yeah. And if you use Omnia, for example, you have the option to like look at the domains. And here, for example, from one of the projects, there is YouTube, which is like really heavily cited. So we'll also talk about YouTube later. But you can see just the diversity of domains and of sources. So you have YouTube, you have Framer, which is like in this example, the project this was set up for. Then you have Reddit, Wix, which is a competitor in a sense there. Then you have TechRadar, which is a third party. Yeah, Zapier, etc. Also other third party sites. So you can see that the citation landscape can be very diverse, and this might be the case also for your project, but it could look completely different. This is why it's so important to like come up with a meaningful prompt set, then track it, and then also not only track it like one day, you have to have like some sort of longer period of time to actually have directionally correct data. So this would not be the truth, because it will look different for individual users, but it will give you a good sense of what plays an important role here.
That's super important, right? Like many people come to me and they say, I saw someone said on LinkedIn that Wikipedia is the most important source, right? And I'm always like be careful, because Wikipedia might be the most important source for a given prompt or for a company or something like this. but you always have to check what's the right data for you, right? Like this is an example for Framer business, like YouTube and Reddit and like all these like comparison pages or more like publications like Tech Radar, for example, are going to be like important. But for example, you don't see here Wikipedia, for example. So it is really a case by case where you have to check your own data. I agree with that.
100%. And also to that point, it varies a lot based on the prompts you track. So if you track prompts that are
Mm.
more like top funnel prompts, so where's the distinction between the different funnel stages? It's obviously not clear always, but if you track something where you ask like um, should I take supplements to support my training? I don't know. You
Yeah,
know, the sources will be completely different compared
completely
to
different.
what is the best vitamin C supplement or the vitamin D supplement if I live in Berlin and in winter we do not have so much sunlight,
Yeah,
which
yeah,
unfortunately we actually don't have. So I'm very jealous of Spain. But this is like it will be completely different because the fan out queries and like the grounding process will look very different. So yeah, just keep this in mind. And ideally, you want to track across a whole user journey. Like you want to track some stuff that is like top funnel to get an idea about what users are exposed to, and like the things that AI actually shows. So you want to know what users see to understand what their follow ups might be, and then you also want to track something mid funnel, and then you also want to track something where it's like provider comparison. Like what's the best car? Should I get a BMW or should I get a Mercedes or
yeah,
something like that?
yeah, yeah.
Cool.
Cool. Let's move into the five levers. So we have talked a little bit more about like more practical setup that you have to do, like the basics. But let's go into real meaty examples now, Niklas.
Yeah, let's do it. So before we start with AI Search Ready on-site content, just a quick response to A here in the chat who wrote, how would you approach prompts discovery if you don't have access to first-party data yet? I just want you to have an answer right away. So I wouldn't start with SEO keywords. I would start with probably Reddit answers or some sort of online publicly available community discussions because you want to have actual user conversations and how users talk about stuff. So just that as a quick one, so we don't lose the question.
Yeah, yeah. At
Cool.
the end of the
Yeah.
session, we'll go through all the questions, but we'll call answering right away.
Nice. Yeah. AI search ready on-site content. I think you brought a case study, right? Here, actually.
Yeah. Actually, this is one of the of the fastest turnarounds that I have seen with in AI visibility. So there is the case of India. They work in the health and nutrition space. So something very similar to the thing that you were saying before with vitamins and things like this. And it's funny because they were, on position number 5, and just in a matter of 10 days, with one single action, they moved into position number 2. And basically, what they saw through Omnia is that there were a lot of like listicles comparing different products that were working super well on AI. So what they did is that they basically used the Omnia agent. The Omnia agent found that they had to write an article with the best 5 nutrition softwares for professionals, and then they went. And we will share a link to exactly the listicle that they did. But immediately, like just in a couple of less than 1 week when they publish it, this citation started to be picked up a lot by all the different AIs, and that propelled them into number 1 position for the prompts that they were tracking, right? Because obviously, in the in the top one of the recommendations, it was their own brand, right? So they did one of those like self promotions where you compare against some of your competitors. So that was a really interesting case study. If you want to see the full case study, by the way, it is published in our website under the case studies section, and you can find in there a few of the different tactics that some brands have been using to get ahead on AI.
Really
Nick.
cool. I also brought a case study, which is from a German prop tech. So they basically help people get building permits. And like if you want to build a house in Germany, you obviously need a permit, or if you want to change the use of something in real estate. So it might be, which is quite common, that you have like an apartment, for example, that was located on the ground floor, looking to the street, and then you change it to a commercial space. So it's like usable for a restaurant or for a cafe. This is basically what they do in a very digital way and like providing people with basically productized service here. And their traffic last year, as maybe some of you can relate with, declined heavily from AI overviews because when it was introduced and completely rolled out in Germany, the traffic took a big hit. I have screenshots from Google Search Console with me here, and the interesting part was that when we started working together during this decline, also before we hit rock bottom, the leads already started growing. So actually, we had a decoupling between traffic and leads, which is something that you wouldn't have expected in the pre-AI search era, because usually you would have a clear exchange rate between traffic and leads. Sorry. So if traffic grew, also leads grew. If traffic went down, leads went down. And I think a key reason, and we'll go into that a little bit more, is that we focused heavily on mid and bottom funnel topics across the buyer journey here. So this is something that I feel like is very important. So it's something that you have probably also heard, but so I can't stress this enough. We don't need content probably anymore that is just like what is content or like glossary style content, where it's basically a little bit more fancy designed Wikipedia page, but content that really helps your buyers or your potential leads answer the hard questions they have in their research journey. This is what really makes sense. And I would say it's actually harder and easier at the same time to do it than most people think. I'll show you in a sec what I mean by that. And what we really learned from that, and I think it's something that is easier to say, but it helps to have experienced it, is the traffic quantity is really a vanity metric. So I would strongly advise everybody in the audience to maybe still look at traffic as a signal. So it can be a signal for you, obviously, and the indexing of your content on Google is an important signal, for example, as well, because if it's not indexed on Google, the chances for it to be used as a AI search citation is almost zero. But quality is really what matters. And if we look at the screenshot from the Google Search Console, just you can see, so we basically started working together in March, where yeah, it was already looking okay, but then over the next month and the next and the next, like the next 3 months, the traffic really went down and took a huge dip, where obviously everybody was pretty concerned. But if you look at the leads, and I brought a screenshot here from Airtable, which is basically the, so to say, reporting CRM, you can see that already in March and April and in May, we saw a steep increase in leads, and it's driven by multiple factors. So it's partly driven by us. It's also partly driven by other factors. But this is also, if you look at the screenshot now until like March 2026, you can see that there are some ups and downs. In June, when the traffic really was rock bottom, obviously June also took a dip, but the longer we worked together, the more we were able to deploy our playbook, the stronger the growth were. And if you compare it basically, so if you do a comparison, for example, March 2026 to March 2025, you can see that we're actually looking at like a 6x lead growth here. And this is unfortunately not with self-reported attribution, etc., due to how the client handles. I strongly advise everybody in the audience use self-reported attribution. It will definitely give you a better sense of what AI search drive has impact. But this is actually last click, so it's very strict. If we would have self-reported, it would probably be even more. But yeah, we can live with 6x growth year over year, and the client can too. And I think if you layer the two things, like if you look at Google Search Console at the top and then the Airtable screenshot at the bottom, like I put this side to side, you can really see the decoupling. I mean, obviously, the traffic went back up again then because we were rewarded by Google for the quality traffic. But look basically at January 2025 and then March 2026. It's almost the exact same level of traffic, but it's 62 to 83. It's, I think, 4 and something X if you compare those 2 months. Like, you wouldn't have thought pre AI search that this was possible. Basically, taking the same amount of traffic and having such strong growth. And I think the key here really is the quality. And I have 4 points, so to say, what makes content AI search ready from my opinion. There might be lots of different other factors. This is just I learned in the whole AI search development. I learned to really go back to first principles. And no, it's not easy, but I think it's better for you to have like more my 4 like key buckets and then draw your own conclusions from that instead of me telling you you need a list and the list has to have 5 bullet points and then you need a table and the table has to be at like 20% into the content, because this is not applicable. It's not a real learning. It's just like something that was thrown at you. So I think there are 4 key points actually. The first one is expertise. So what we did, for example, is we conducted subject matter expert interviews with the client, and we still do it today. So basically, for every topic, we do an interview with an internal person, and it's sometimes the founder, it's sometimes someone from the commercial team, it's sometimes an architect, it's sometimes someone that's working in another field. And it really helps us to bring deep expertise to the content because we do not only rely on what's already publicly available, but we actually make the internal knowledge usable for the content. And this is something that also we also published a little video with one of the co-founders where he said like this process that we have set up have made them so much more efficient. Like it's really something that is, at the one hand, it's a little bit hard, but it's also much easier than you think. Actually, just jumping on a call with someone that really knows the topic, talking 15 minutes, and then adding this to the content. And the next aspect is relevance. So I think you have to really focus on topic that map to real buying intent. So my favorite example of how not to do it is when HubSpot published this article, how to do the shrug emoji. So this is something where they also acknowledged it over time. So, and HubSpot has made a great turnaround with like the whole SEO and AI search growth they have seen. But this has just gotten out of hand, where you just create some sort of content to drive some sort of traffic and then have some sort of like low quality lead magnet on the page to get some email addresses. Just doesn't make sense. And then comprehensiveness. So I think you have to cover a topic fully and you have to prioritize the information gain. So you cannot have like fluffy content where you try to just come up with a certain amount of words just so the content seems really comprehensive. You have to really make sure that it's deep, that it allows people to actually dive into the topic fully. What that does not necessarily mean that people read everything. It just means that they are able to like dive into certain aspects. And then structure. I think you have to optimize for readability, optimize for skimming, and a quick way to insights. So what this means is I would never like hide one of the key aspects somewhere down in the content because you want to have people to scroll and then see my cool CTAs and all of that. I think you should front load as much as possible that people really need to see, because then it's also generally speaking, a higher probability for a scraper or crawler to actually see these insights and see these aspects and then also ideally maybe prioritize your content. So I cannot say for sure. But what I've come back to oftentimes now is what is good for the user is also good for my own ranking and visibility. So it's good for a user to be able to see the key points as quickly as possible. So then it's probably also good for the machine. Yeah. Another level we have is the help center. And the help center is something that I honestly was super surprised to start talking with clients and with my team about it. But it's true, like for certain companies, for certain verticals, it's super important. And the reason for that is that when AI search it, it does a query fan out. And I don't know about like how sophisticated the audience is. Maybe you've already heard about query fan out like hundreds of times, but basically the idea is AI does a grounding process and it creates this sometimes hyper-specific subqueries where it basically shoots 10, 15 searches simultaneously to compile the best response for you. And these hyper-specific subqueries are where, depending on the prompts, Help Center articles might win. And it is not because they're super relevant based on a classic, even like long tail keyword logic, but they have information that they usually have information that is very important around certain questions users have, especially around tech related queries, integration related queries or prompts, something where it goes really deep. And I brought two examples actually, because I could imagine that it's a little bit hard to imagine it theoretically. So we used Omnia to track a couple of prompts. And one of the prompts was, which funnel builder has a native integration to Google Ads and allows me to send user data for enhanced conversions. And actually, this is a prompt that I used myself. So when we were looking for funnel builders for clients, because we think organic growth very holistically, we also help clients with conversion optimization and driving more leads also from that aspect. I actually prompted more or less exactly the same. And the interesting thing is that you will see pages like, for example, here, the help.gohighlevel.com, which is basically the Go High Level. It's a tool in that vertical. It's the support portal where it's an article that is probably not crafted in any sense for SEO or for AI search visibility, but it shows up there. And it shows up because it covers as an important aspect for this query in a lot of detail. And I think it's also very well structured. It actually does a lot of the things right that Help Center content does right that is cited. So it has, as you can see here in the table of content, it has something like key benefits of add to Google Ads workflow action, how to use it, popular use cases, frequently asked questions, and then also related articles. So there's at least some love that was put into this article. There are some things that could be done better. But especially the use cases is something that makes a lot of sense because people often have specific use cases, specific things they have to solve now in mind. And this is how they usually prompt. And this is also what you will then see in the grounding queries or basically in the query fan out. And I also brought another example because you could say, yeah, this is just a one-shot thing, but it's not. Like you can also try it yourself. Maybe you will not see Help Center content, but I bet you if you do a lot of experimentation, as we did, for example, you will definitely see it showing up, especially in tech-related topics. So this prompt, for example, was, which funnel builder has a native integration with Meta Conversion API to get the highest possible conversion accuracy for lead generation campaigns? So it's an actual use case that a lot of Meta ads marketers have. So I happen to know a couple of them. And they always look for a Meta Conversion API integration because it allows them to circumvent some of the cookie and GDPR problems and have like this native server to server integration. And here the same, like we have this funnel kit page here. Obviously, Go High Level is also a part of it. Again, it's just covered by this little tooltip. But you can see that it's the funnel kit docs area, and I added a screenshot on the right so you can really see that this is not marketing content, like that is not from the blog. It's actually from their like configuration. And I think they're also doing it pretty well because they're even giving you a little bit of the context, like with the iOS 14 release, Facebook has become more particular about how the data will be sent over to its servers, blah, blah, blah. And just providing this extra level of context and providing this extra level of use case explanation, I think is very valuable and can prove to increase the citability of Help Center content a lot. So this is why I compiled like 5 things that I think could help you turn Help Center content into a citation if you have Help Center content. If you do not have Help Center content, but you think that your audience might ask like these very specific questions, you could even think about setting up a Help Center or docs or support portal. But I think the first thing, as always, and it comes back to this first principle idea of reverse engineering, you have to check if you're already seeing Help Center citations in your relevant prompt set. So if you don't want to set up a prompt set just yet because you're unsure if you want to focus on that certain queries, like these integration tech-related queries, you can also run a couple of queries on your own just to validate, for example, in ChatGPT, Perplexity, Google AI Mode, or AI Overviews. Then you can analyze your competitors. You should analyze your competitors. So what are they doing well from like how you perceive it if they're cited? So do they name use cases, for example? So for Google Ads, the use cases would
Yeah.
be you're a B2B, you're running B2B campaigns and you want to improve the conversion accuracy because it's super important for the algorithm to use the best quality signals, etc. So something like that, you just want to really be aware of that. Then mention integration partners because mentioning them, there are also like entities, and like entities in the sense that it's like a brand or like a tool. And if this is connected, like semantically connected, so if there's a relevance between this provider and the query we're actually looking at, it can really help to improve like the perceived relevancy of your content and also explain the why. Like, what are we doing this here? I think it was a generally a good example with Funnel Kit where they explained this like iOS 14 context, like why is meta conversion API even relevant? And then I think you should, at least in some way, treat Help Center articles like marketing content. So you should obviously not make it like very extensive if it's not necessary, but you should add use cases, you should mention features, and you should use audience language. So, and this is something if, for example, a user, so if they talk about something differently, then you maybe talk about it internally, use both wordings. Like this is something where just feel like you have to always come back from reverse engineering what users actually search and what they care about. And this obviously just ties back to first party research or to like audience mining. And then if you have broad articles, so it could be something like, for example, for a client Hayflow, where they might have just one Google Ads article, which connects to the Google Ads integration, which generally makes sense from a tech perspective. But if there are like so many different angles that a user uses the integration, like Google Ads enhanced conversions for leads, it might be Google Ads through Google Tag Manager integration, etc. I think it makes sense to split it up as long as it's meaningful, still meaningful, because you want to ensure that the content has the highest relevancy for the super specific subqueries. And so there might not be a right or wrong, just like as a best practice, but I would always recommend to think about, is there a meaningful differentiation that I can do from this like big pillar article to split it up so that it's more relevant to certain specific queries? And then also collaborate where possible. So for Hayflow, for example, they have a Pipedrive integration. So they're a funnel builder tool, and they obviously integrate with CRM tools. And the good thing is that not only Hayflow has a Help Center article about their Pipedrive integration, Pipedrive also has an article about the Hayflow integration. And this obviously makes a lot of sense because if you increase the number of URLs and especially authoritative URLs that mention your brand and that provide relevancy in that context, then it helps you also to be the response that is mentioned in the AI answer. So this is Help Center. And yeah, YouTube. Okay, we have some YouTube data. I think Daniel, you brought a lot of data actually here, right?
Yeah. We do. Like, um, yeah, not surprisingly, YouTube, it's it's a citation source that is used across B2B, across B2C industries. It is super popular for a bunch of the top AI engines. Like, no surprise, right? Like, YouTube is owned by Google, so shows up a lot on Google AI Mode, Google AI Overviews, but also like Perplexity and ChatGPT, they are using like YouTube videos very, very, very heavily. Um, um, maybe Niklas, you might want to cover like why it's so interesting.
Yeah, of course. As you said, it's a key source of citations, and it makes total sense for Google because it's like within their ecosystem, but it also generally makes sense because it's the same with Reddit. There are these things on the internet where there's uh, I would not call it small, but like a certain group of people that already know about the quality of content on certain platforms. And it was Reddit previously to ChatGPT, and it was YouTube also. And then there are always people that are still skeptical. Yeah, but is it really cool on Reddit? Is it really cool on YouTube? Like, is it meaningful to spend time there? And this is interesting because now these platforms are like the platforms that are so often cited in AI search. And I think YouTube is particularly interesting for you from a marketing standpoint because it's what I call a controlled third party domain. So it's not your website, which is good because you can control what happens on your website. And you have another domain, so to say, that increases your probability for citations, but you control the content. Like it's not like a publisher website where you rely on the editors of the publication to write the stuff how you want it to be written, but you can actually go create your own YouTube channel, or you even have a channel, upload videos, as long as they do not violate the guidelines. You can upload what you want. You can put in the title as you want. You can put in the description as you want. So this is what I mean by controlled third-party domain. And what's so cool about YouTube is that it's actually relatively easy to get started with optimization. So, and the important part is that title and descriptions are key. They're key determinants for whether a video gets cited, at least until now. So we do not know for sure. We're like actively exploring some research about how important the actual content of the video and like the transcript is. So the hypothesis basically will be able to get a video into the citations based on a good title and a good description, but the actual content of the video is just a monkey that is like having an instrument and like there's just some music. So the actual content of the video does not match to title and description. This is something that we are currently checking. I cannot spoil the results just yet. And even cooler is if you think about it for Google, and I mean, there's still a lot of people using Google, and actually Google has not lost in any way significant market share, but AI reviews is distributed a lot on Google, that videos can embed it directly there. And we have like a screenshot for you just to see how powerful this is. So if you can get your videos into the AI overviews, you actually have this huge embed where you can basically start watching it right away. And this is, for example, for Heyflow, where we did a lot of experimentation around that. And you can also see that Heyflow, for example, is mentioned for this specific prompt here. So how do I create interactive multi-steps form without coding? Something that a lot of people in the audience care about. So for Heyflow, and we are mentioned alongside Typeform and Tally and Fillout, which are other big brands. But you can see that we have YouTube here as a key citation. It helps us drive like brand mention, and obviously we also have Heyflow own content. So you can see that at the top, like where there's this citation icons, this little black white thing is also the Heyflow domain, which is exactly how you want it to be. Like you want your own content as citation, and you also want your content on YouTube as a citation, and this helps power the brand mentions. And you can see here, this is like how we, for example, set up the title and the description. So it's pretty comprehensive. I know if you are looking really closely, you will say probably, hey, wait a second, this is a video from January 2024, and you are claiming it's a 2026 guide at the top. And I get you. The thing is, I would have loved a fresh video 2026 that is produced. But as you know, you always need like budget buy-in, and you get budget buy-in from experiments that work. So what we did here is we worked with what we have, which was the video library, and we thought, hey, how can we get the content into the AI citations? But the cool thing is now our client Hayflow is actively working with us on producing new video content because they saw that it's working, which is super cool because we do not just argue with like theoretical ideas. We backed our strategy in data. We set up an experiment. We showed some real results, and now we're having the opportunity to like take it even further. And if you think for yourself, okay, cool, fine, how can I get started? I mean, what will I do? Actually, it's, I would say, relatively simple. So I would recommend to start basically with existing content. So start with what you have. It's there's no need necessarily to produce new stuff. I think we also have a slide for that where we have like the four bullet points that we can show. So start with what you have. No need to produce new stuff. So obviously this requires to have some sort of YouTube library, but you do not need hundreds of videos. If you have 10 videos or 20 videos, just start looking at your prompts. Start checking where YouTube shows up as a citation and then start cross-referencing with the video content you already have in your library and start asking yourself, hey, how do I have to maybe adjust the title and adjust the description to increase the chances that this video actually shows up for this specific prompt? If you do not have any videos live, I would still recommend to not abandon the idea immediately, but to actually think about maybe do I have webinars that I haven't uploaded to YouTube yet? Where I usually just have the recordings behind like an email wall, but that I can upload? Do I have internal demos? Something that is maybe not polished, like a founder Loom video, but that can provide a lot of good context that I can use for an experiment here. I think you can start with as few as 5 videos. And as I already said, title and description are key, so optimize those. But also keep the thumbnail in mind, because if you remember the screenshot from AI overviews, so obviously if your video is embedded there, you want to have a cool thumbnail, because if the thumbnail is crap, people probably won't click on the video. It still helps with if it's a citation with driving brand mentions, but ideally people also consume the content, because obviously the more time people spend with your brand, spend with your content, the higher the likelihood of them eventually converting over time. And in terms of experiment setup, we started with 5 videos first for Hayflow. I think this is a good number just to get a sense of, is something happening? Is this coming into citations? After that, we expanded to 20 videos, and now we have it like an established flow with an internal tool to really make this a key initiative, and also obviously produce new content from there.
And one piece of advice, if you're going to start with these first 5, like something I'd recommend you to do is to go into either with Omnia or, as Niklas suggested, like go into ChatGPT, Perplexity, do this yourself. With Omnia is faster, but take a look at what are the videos that are working well, like what are people talking about that is being picked up by AI, and prioritize those themes, right? Like if if you see that the first 5 videos that are picked up as citations, they all have a similar title or a similar description, or they are about a topic in particular, I would encourage you to use that data to get started with these first 5 videos.
Really, really solid and important addition.
Yep. Great.
Next one is review sites, and I think you brought some interesting data from an Omnia analysis here.
Yeah, we've made like a quick analysis. We took data from January to April, which is about 25 million citations, and we found stuff that is quite interesting. So these are the top 5 review platforms where AI is fetching information from, right? So it's Trustpilot, G2, Gartner, Capterra, and Trusted Areas. So what is also quite interesting is that not all of the AI engine platforms are fetching data from the same places, right? So, for example, Trustpilot is huge for ChatGPT. So, if your goal is to show up on ChatGPT, you should like Trustpilot should be your number one priority. G2 is also important. Then it's Gartner, then it's Capterra. However, if you create content on Trustpilot, forget about Perplexity, right? Like for some reason, and like this is something you learn that different platforms they have their own preferences. They also have their own commercial partnerships, right? So I wouldn't be surprised if Trustpilot and ChatGPT have some sort of partnership, or if G2 and Perplexity have one, right? Like that happens as well with newspapers. Like there's a lot of people from Spain in the audience. Like you will see that El País, which is equivalent to El Mundo, which are two newspapers in Spain, like equally important. El País is cited all the time by ChatGPT, while El Mundo is almost never cited, and that's because the group where El País belongs to, Grupo Prisa, has a partnership with OpenAI, right? So that's something, those little details that you learn as well when you're deep into this. Um, but yeah, U2 seems to work quite well with most of the platforms. Then is Gartner, which also has, again, no data where Perplexity doesn't like read information from. So Perplexity is mostly U2. For Google AI Mode and Google AI Overviews is mostly even distributed among the top three. So Trustpilot, G2, and Gartner, where it is high. So this will give you an idea of like following Niklas' advice before, like if you feel like your audience will be more hanging out on ChatGPT or in Google AI Mode, like those are the different places where you should be like trying to get those reviews.
Yes, and I think we have to probably speed up a little bit, or I have to speed up a little bit because otherwise we're running out of time. So I want to make this a quick one. Obviously, it's important, but review sites are important. You already know that, and AI often cites like these category pages, for example, where you have sort of the roundup for certain tools and categories. And the thing is, these review sites have a lot of relevancy because they have like extensive comparisons. There's obviously they have a lot of providers on there, and they have user-generated content again, like reviews, where people share their actual opinion. And the cool thing is also here, it's in part a controlled third-party domain. So you can have your profile, you can make sure that you're listed in all relevant categories, you can optimize your profile, so you can add like the most important entities in terms of like the categories or the terms you want to show up. You can list the use case, etc. You can try to incentivize positive reviews. So some of the platforms have their own programs where you can provide users with like an Amazon coupon or something like that. You can obviously also just ask your users and like make sure they're super happy and then actively ask them for positive reviews. And you should aim for being top of category rundowns. I just brought an example from another client of ours, which is Deploy. So it's an IT service management platform. And we just made sure that it shows up for all the relevant, even adjacent categories, which is like IT service management, onboarding, IT asset management, etc. As you can see here also then a description. We have like this, which is also bolded here, like core IT tasks such as onboarding, offboarding, procurement, device and software account management, security, governance, compliance, something like that. We also mentioned certain personas like HR teams, founders, IT management, managers, etc. And also we have managed with like the reviews and also like the relevancy in the certain categories. So we are not at number one here yet, unfortunately, because this other tool has somehow gained this one award. I don't know why, but we're at least like number two for the best IT service management tools, which is super cool because this is a citation. And then if you're in that citation, have your own listicle, have your own content, works really well. So then, level 5, programmatic content. I'll try to make this quick while not sacrificing quality for you. What did we do with programmatic content? So we created location-specific content around building permits, and we created a lot of it. So it's actually like hundreds of pages, and we created them fully with AI. And I know a lot of people probably see on LinkedIn these posts, AI content doesn't work. I want to show you that it can work if you do it right. And obviously it's more work than just a button click, but it can work really well. And the reason why we engaged into this programmatic content initiative is because the keyword volume was often very low and sometimes even zero in SEMrush when we looked at the topics that we wanted to address. But our audience intel said people were searching for that. Like the audience cared. start. And we knew it from the talking to the founders, talking to sales team, etc. And the results are actually super, super great. So we have gotten like almost 10K net new clicks in 6 months. Obviously, I told you clicks are not as important as they were, but still you can use it as a signal. Like obviously, if I get the clicks and if are meaningful clicks, I will take it, and it's a good proxy for me. But we have also gotten around approximately 100 leads. And I brought two screenshots from the Google Search Console. The first one is a cluster we did around a pre-building permit request. I know it's a complicated topic, but basically before you build something, you can ask the authorities, hey, is it okay to build this thing? It's like very simplified. But the good thing is like a lot of people will tell you, you create AI content, it will bring traffic for 6 weeks, then it will fall down a cliff. This is a project we launched early September. So you can draw your own conclusions from it. If it's live for already more than 6 months, and if it's like just nicely growing over time, there's no sign of it falling down a cliff whatsoever. The little downfall in the middle is actually Christmas time. But this is like purely AI generated content, obviously with human oversight and obviously with a lot of like workflow engineering that went into that. And the other example I have is tapping into a cluster that was already live, but then we launched a lot of new pages, which were like additional pages with certain building permit topics that are connected to the states in Germany, the state regulations, etc. So it would be like the building permit request for a carport, and then for Lower Saxony or for North Rhine-Westphalia or for Bavaria, etc., where we didn't have the specific content. And what you can see is like also drawing to it from AI search. So it's obviously a huge amount of content, which is why we didn't have a prompt set that we tracked for that. But we actually looked it up in SEMrush, and honestly, I'm not a big fan of SEMrush anymore due to the whole direction the product's taking. But still, it helped me in that sense because I checked the rankings there, the AI overviews rankings for Planeco building, which obviously was driven a lot by this content. And if you check it, we also have a slide for that. You can see how this has actually gone up, and it's filtered here. Like I have this filtered based on domain shows up in AI reviews. It has actually gone up a lot over time. So there was already something happening around May, June based on our work overall, but we could actually like foster this growth even more. And if you check the pages, and we check the pages that are actually shown up in the AI reviews, you can see a lot of the pages that we have actually created within this programmatic initiatives. So you will mostly notice it based on these additions of the states at the end, where it's like Brandenburg, North Rhine-Westphalia, Hessen, Bayern, which is Bavaria, Niedersachsen, which is Lower Saxony. And so I think this can work really, really well, especially if you have topics where the individual volume of a topic is too small to justify creating like a high quality editorial whatsoever workflow. And the actual workflow we used here is, I would say, relatively simple. So we created one perfect gold standard page. So we can also show the workflow. We have perfect. So we created one perfect gold standard page manually, which was basically the building permit request, for example, page, where we had all the important info in there: deep research, genuine value, subject matter expert interview conducted, and then we built an AI workflow. So you can use whatever tool you like. You could build it with Cloud Code. You could build it with other tools that checks, for example, the top 10 at Google, then runs a deep research, obviously factors in your own point of view, your own research, etc., generates meta, FAQs, and the body. And then a pro tip here from me: if you use something like deep research, no matter if it's Perplexity, deep research, Claude, Gemini, whatever, name trustworthy sources or source types. So in this specific example, we used certain government sources because it allows you to tailor the research more towards what you actually know is valuable and not have the AI like go above and beyond, but like lose sight of what's actually important. And obviously we had human in the loop here. So human in the loop means spot checks. So we create some content and we check it. Does it meet our level of expectation, editorial expectation, etc.? And then we did some final touches before publishing. But it's not a one-click thing. So it's something where you really need a thoughtful workflow. But this is also why I just want to reiterate on how to prevent Mount AI, where like it's this concept of you basically falling down a cliff. So there are a couple of things here. The most common mistake is if you, for example, think about local content, but it could also be all sort of like programmatic content. It's the same content basically, and you just swap city names, you swap road titles, you swap that. This is like the old programmatic playbook. I would not recommend to use this in any shape or form still today. If you still do it, and even if you use AI for it and you create some sort of like sloppy AI content, it might get indexed, it might rank initially, it might even drive some traffic. But let's say maybe after 6 weeks, maybe you have more time, Google sees no unique value and your rankings collapse. And the right approach is, and I will keep sharing this also on LinkedIn, and we have been very outspoken about that AI generated content can work if you do it right. Each page needs genuinely differentiated context, and it's about content engineering versus content generation. So content engineering is a thoughtful workflow, whereas content generation is just a button click, and this doesn't really work. So maybe
Yeah.
to wrap it up, yep.
And I fully subscribe like into that. Like we at Omnia we also run into this a lot because one of the things, like we haven't talked about it today, but one of the things that Omnia will do for you with the AI agents is that we will take the best performing citations, and many times what Omnia will recommend you to do is to write an article, right? And then what Omnia is going to say is this is the best performing structure that you can find, that you should write today for your article, right? And it's going to give you a super detailed description of this is how the intro should look like. These are the topics that you should talk about. This is how the FAQ should look like. This is the format for a comparison table if we see that this is a pattern that is working. And when you then take that all that information, even if you put that into an AI and it generates a piece of content, that final piece of content works super, super well for both SEO and for AI visibility. And it's exactly what Niklas was saying. You could do that. That is a lot of work. It's a lot of work even if it was done by an agent. The alternative is that you go to ChatGPT and you say, "Hey, generate generate a blog post about this." Then that second approach, which is really like content generation, that's not gonna take you anywhere, right? That's gonna the visibility that second blog post is gonna bring you is gonna be very shitty. But so you shouldn't confuse AI generated content with content engineering, where there is a lot of work behind structure and things like this. So yeah, fully subscribe to what you said, Nicholas.
Nice. Then we should obviously leave you with an action plan. So the too long didn't read is start with a prompt set, track citations, and then pull the right lever for you. I hope we provided you with some inspiration. The foundations, obviously, you have to build a meaningful prompt set. You have to track visibility across the platforms that are meaningful to your audience. It could be ChatGPT, Perplexity, AI, which is AI mode. And the 5 levers that we have pulled that have proven to drive great results. And I hope some of them will also work really well for you. Maybe not all of them. So it obviously depends on the use cases. And I also have shared different use cases here. Is on-site content, is help center, is YouTube, is review sites, is programmatic. I think, as Daniel also said in the beginning, the cool thing is for none of that, you have to desperately wait for an editor from a third-party site to take you into that listicle or to create that new article for you. All of that is either your own website or is controlled third party. So which is really cool, and I think it's always important to start with the things you can really get started immediately. So yeah, I hope this is something that you can maybe not start today, maybe in the US because the day is still early, but maybe start tomorrow or next week.
Cool. And hey, as an appreciation token, we wanted to both from Omnia and from Radyant, we wanted to offer you like on the Omnia side like a 30% off discount so that you can try Omnia for 3 months. You can use the code webinar 30 when you sign up. And also, we typically do this with enterprise customers only. But if you send us an email after the webinar, we can do like a personal AI visibility session with you guys. From Radiant, the same goes through. Like you can get an honest audit for your organic growth potential. And yeah, you can even combine both, and then you'll have a very powerful duo, like working on your growth on AI. The last thing before we move into the questions, I wanted to show you just one last piece of thing that is super, super new from our side. So I I told you about in the beginning that I'm really obsessed with this idea of how to create like 10x marketeers, and we have just launched a new thing at Omnia that really like changes how you can operate like your AI visibility. And it is really interesting because we've launched an MCP. An MCP, for those of you that don't know what it is basically a protocol so that you can connect an LLM such as ChatGPT or Claude or Copilot with an application, right? So the outcome is that you can basically go into Claude or into ChatGPT and speak to Omnia directly so that you can operate it from there. So, for example, you can ask, hey, can you give me an overview of HeyFlow's AI visibility for the last 7 days in every single AI engine? And rather than logging into Omnia and checking the data yourself, like Claude is going to connect into Omnia, is going to bring all the data, and is going to give you all the replies here. And then, you can go and say, hey, can you actually give me an insight or an action that I can implement on ChatGPT to start improving my visibility? And it's gonna again go into Omnia, it's gonna analyze the data, and it's gonna tell you, okay, this is what you should do. I think this is actually about creating an account on YouTube, making sure that you get some reviews, and it's about how you should like optimize your G2 profile. Something very similar to what Niklas was talking about before. So
Looks super
yeah,
cool.
yeah. It's really game changing. Like we use Omnia to improve our own visibility, obviously, and I am the whole day like using it from Cloud Code is actually quite fun and quite fast. So cool. Time for questions for those of you who still made it into the end. So let me open the chat and go through them very quickly. So there are some questions. So I'm a bit unclear on visibility as a KPI. What exactly does it take into account? So I can probably take that one.
Yeah, please.
Yeah. So visibility, what it means is how many times your brand is mentioned on an AI answer, right? So it's more like a binary metric. So that whenever you go to ChatGPT and you say, "Hey, what are the best running shoes for running a marathon?" If ChatGPT mentions Nike, for example, then visibility of Nike is 100%, right? That's how we measure it. We also have share of voice, which is how many mentions did your brand get versus the total number of mentions. So in the same example, if it recommended you Nike, Adidas, and Puma, then your share of voice for Nike will be 33%. So 1 divided by 3. Okay, the second question is, it's often said that mentions are more valuable than citations. Why is that? Do they have a more direct impact on visibility?
Should
You
I
want to take that
answer?
one? Yep.
Yeah, of course. So I think this is important. It's important to differentiate the different wordings here. So if we talk about your brand being mentioned in the AI response, this is the ultimate goal because we want to have people ask ChatGPT for something and then have your brand mentioned there. This is what then also drives the visibility number. And what drives these mentions is usually domains that are cited, like citations, and in these citations, your brand has to be present. So, and the more, so very simply put, the more citations there are, And the more often your brand is mentioned in these citations, the higher the likelihood that your brand is also mentioned in the eventual AI response.
But again, if there are a lot of citations that belong to your domain, then obviously in your own content you're going to be talking about your brand. So
Of course.
therefore, yeah, mentions are going to be higher as well. Is EEAT still important, or should we focus more on the four factors you showed in your slide? I think this one is addressed to you, Niklas.
Yeah, I would say that the four things I showed are pretty deeply connected to EAT because I obviously mentioned expertise. Then you have authority, you have trustworthiness. So when I talk about comprehensiveness, it's obviously also something that ties into that. I think it's super important. I just think it's always important to ask yourself how to apply EAT. And I think a couple of things that I mentioned, like, are the operationalized things that you can take away from the concept of EEAT. So I think it's still very important. Yeah.
Hmm. Hmm. And then they're asking if Help Center is the same as FAQs or if it goes beyond that.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit hard to answer. What I would say is just the if you ask AI certain questions, and especially for questions that are very like deep tech related integration, etc., etc. The type of content that shows up is oftentimes help center or is like this support portal content. So if it's like FAQs, I don't know, like FAQ, we probably have different definitions of FAQ. So just an FAQ on your blog post, I would then say no, then it's not the same. If you have some sort of area on your website where you call it FAQs and it's like a help center, then probably yes. But in the end, it comes down to reverse engineering the citation landscape for your prompt, for your tracked prompts, and whatever shows up there, if it's like support documents and help center, whatever for these types of prompts. This is the format that you should probably lean into. So you don't have to reinvent the wheel. I think you should just care about um, putting to the front what you are doing differently. So, for example, Heyflow, for example, does a lot of things differently when it comes to marketing integrations, and they proud themselves on being basically the best solutions for paid marketers. And this is something that they put front and center because they don't want to have like every potential sign up out there, because they want to have the signups from people that are most relevant to their ICP. So, yeah.
Mhm, mhm. And on top of that, I will say that I have seen that FAQs they work quite well, even if they are included in landing pages or blog posts or something like this. So I see many like successful citations that they have an FAQ at the bottom, answering like some of those like questions that people typically ask. So I think that that is definitely a good practice as well.
Nice.
Hey, YouTube videos are useful for Google AI overviews, but also for other LLM answers. Definitely yes. They show up a lot on ChatGPT. They show up a lot on Perplexity. So yeah, they are very helpful across all the different AI engines. And the last question from A is, when you talk about optimizing the content, titles, descriptions, what do you refer to? Answering to the prompt, but anything else?
Yep. We think about entities. So if we optimize the video content, and if it's a video where it's about, for example, funnel builders, then it might be relevant to also mention meta ads. It might be important to mention Google Ads. It might be important to mention performance marketing. So if you think about the term performance marketing, it's basically an entity. So it's something that has a dedicated meaning. It's not just like words like and or etc. They are not entities. So a word with a dedicated meaning. And we think about that, how we can connect that. And also we think about what is basically the AI response showing us. So if we ask what's the best funnel builder to use with a native meta conversion API integration, and if the response shows us, if you think about that, you want to care about A, B, C, D, we try to somehow weave that into the title as much as possible. Obviously, titles are limited, but then weave that into the description. So the description should not only be about the content of the video, but it should also expand the context, etc. So I would invite you, if you feel it's too theoretical and have the same sense right now, just go to the Heyflow YouTube channel and check for videos. You will probably see if the description was optimized by us, because it's very structured and like very, so it's not very short. Just check for yourself and get a sense of how we do it and what we apply. And yeah, I think just reverse engineer from what we do, for example. So I invite you, and even if you work for a competitor of ours, we then will try to outrank you again afterwards if you make progress. But yeah, this is what I can say. I hope it helps.
Nice. Pablo is asking if they're already a customer, if we also get the reward. Yes, you can send me an email. I'll give you something nice too, Pablo. Andres Chapo for that MCP. Great content. Thank you, Andres. Let's see. Okay, Sam is asking, how do you recommend using Reddit to get AI citations without violating rules against self-promotion? I think that's a really good question. And I can start with that because we've worked on Reddit a lot. I think in Reddit, you have to be particularly careful because you depend on many things, right? Like you depend on the anti-bot checkers. So you have to be especially careful with AI generated content and things like this. Like for sure, I wouldn't recommend doing anything automatic on Reddit because you're gonna you're gonna be banned like in 2 minutes. Um, and something I really recommend as well is to make sure that you understand the different communities where you are participating before you start posting a lot of content, right? And that you see the dynamics that are happening there. Um, that being said, what it is quite helpful is that you can see what are the patterns that emerge where AI pulls information from us often, right? Like something we're doing a lot at Omnia, for example, is that our agent are going to recommend you to, hey, go to this subreddit and actually like talk about your product there. But make sure you follow the community rules. Make sure you don't do any astroturfing. Make sure you engage as a real person. Make sure whenever you put like a comparison, like you also add some competitors, not only your own products, right? Like things like this. So it's a little bit more of common sense. The only thing that I really, that's one of the few places where I really don't recommend to do like stuff that is fully automated. Like I think you can automate the analysis and things like this, but when you go and you actually post yourself, I would really like do it like manually with a person that does it very carefully. I don't know, Nicholas, if you have something else on that one.
No, it makes a lot of sense. I think the most genuine way is to engage like non-commercially. Like, I mean, if there is an option to mention a product or to say that you're part of a certain team or that you're working at X, Y, Z, it's obviously something that makes sense. And even if people are asking questions about your product, then you can obviously engage in that, and you can shape the sentiment. But other than that, I think you mentioned a lot of important things, and I would just so I would not try to game the system like too hard and like over optimize, because then in the end it will probably fire back. So rather be cautious and accept that it's a long term or at least midterm investment and not some short term gain.
Nice, nice. Andres is asking what's coming next in terms of features for Omnia. I think Andre has already replied. Like we just launched like a product updates blog where you can like see for yourselves. But a couple of something that we just launched beside this MCP is the ability to write to the MCP. So you can now like not only like read information from Omnia, but you can say, "Hey, I want to monitor these prompts," or "I want to mark this insight or this action as done." So that's quite interesting. A couple of things that we're working on that are really, really interesting is now we are giving you actionable recommendations. What we're going to do next is to do a lot of those recommendations ourselves for you. So we plan to do things like creating content automatically so that you can auto-publish to Webflow or to the system that you where you have all your content. So that's something that is quite interesting that is coming. Another one is that we just launched as well is like advanced sentiment analysis. So not only telling you whether AI is perceiving you positively or negatively, which in my opinion is a bit stupid and not very actionable, but whenever I say what are the best running shoes, AI is going to talk about things, right? It's going to say these shoes are great in terms of comfort. They don't have very good durability, right? So you are gonna get like a feature level sentiment analysis. You're gonna see something like Nike is well positioned on durability and comfort, is not so well positioned on price, right? And that's something that where you're gonna be able to work on each of the features, and that's something that is coming. It has already come actually. But yeah, in this blog, in this link that Andre shared, you can check it. And oh, sorry, I think I missed one question. Thanks, Andre, for reminding me. So, for those of us that work across different European markets, how important is content localization, both in terms of language and country? How would you recommend approaching this? I would say super important. AI, like AIs are quite localized. Sometimes you will see that when they fetch information, they go to especially to US or English speaking sites to answer the questions as well. But we are helping brands like optimize their presence in many local markets like Spain or France or Italy or Sweden. And the majority of citations are coming from local sites in the language of the prompt. So my recommendation is that you monitor those prompts in the original country in the original language, and then that you see the patterns at work on those citations, and then you try to replicate and follow all the best practices that we shared today. Niklas, I don't know if you wanted to add something to that.
No, I think this is perfectly fine. I would just always keep in mind that a lot of grounding queries, at least in ChatGPT, oftentimes English. For example, we saw this in Germany, so it makes sense to have German and English content, for example. And then, other than that, I think everything uh, that you mentioned is something that you should care about.
Yeah, fantastic, fantastic. I think there is a last question from Gustavo on how you are going to integrate that sentiment analysis. That comes by default in Omnia. So for all the prompts that you monitor, you're gonna get sentiment analysis at an attribute level. So it is already there in the platform. You can also use it from the MCP. So yeah, cool. We
Nice.
didn't do we didn't do so well on time.
Not at all.
I think the content was quite nice. I think the questions were super useful as well. So hey, thank you everyone that stayed until the end. Thank you, Niklas, for joining us on this webinar.
Thank you so much for having me.
And yeah, we will do more of this because I think they're very nice. And yes, you will guys receive the recording. Andre will make sure that everyone that joined receives it. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Have a fantastic rest of the week. Bye now.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.